wireless and wired, 5G, all that kind of stuff. Memory, the 3D stacking, all that kind of stuff. What's important is photonics. I mean, if you think about the body, it's the circulatory system. It pumps all the information around. Just like in your body, your blood vessels. That's what photonics does, okay? And it's always been kind of on the data center side of things, right? You think about they run fiber across the ocean. Now they're trying to use it in more places. Bottom line is light is cheaper than electric. That's what it is. It's faster, it's cheaper, it uses less power, all those types of things. So you have all these companies, Intel, Apple, NVIDIA, all these huge guys with these research departments trying to figure out how can we take photonics and put it into the system, right? And that's really what the key is. And this is what Lip-Bu cares about. It's across everywhere. Okay? Video, IoT, automotive, gaming, medical, robotics. I mean, automotive, you think about LiDAR, the photonics workshop we did 2 years ago, right? The medical side of things, all the different sensors that they're putting inside of things, right? These are the types of systems that we're talking about, and these are the systems that are exploding as far as growth, okay? So when you think about Virtuoso, we have all these things we've been working on, and people are like, well, how do they all fit together? We have system design that we've been working on. That's kind of the Virtuoso RF and VSDP that have been around for a couple years. To be honest, they were probably ahead of their time, okay? You talk about the system analysis group, and we talk about photonics. People want to know when they take a photonic chip and they put it next to an electrical chip, what's the thermal implications of putting the two things on the same package, the same board? That's the question that people are having issues with. The PCB, the advanced packaging, the complex layout. This is your Kirby core. These are core building blocks to put together these complex systems. And this is really where we differentiate from our competition. It's across all of these things, right? Think about Synopsys. What do they do for package and board? Yeah? Someday they'll work on it, I guess. You look at Mentor. Well, we're very strong on the IC side. We're very strong on the system analysis side, okay? So this is really how we differentiate. If you actually blow into photonics, huge growth. Gilles actually had some slides he sent out yesterday that show even probably more growth than this. Today it's being dominated by communications and data centers. It's really about pumping as much data up into the cloud, back and forth, across 5G, all that kind of stuff. What's interesting about photonics, it's a lot of different process technologies, right? And that's the key thing. Because what we're going to talk about on the next couple slides is that system design is about taking different types of technology and mixing them in the same system. Okay? And that's really what we're focused on. If you look at the industry reports from like Yole, as far as the ecosystem, there's too many customers to count now. That being said, we have 6 paying customers that buy Virtuoso Photonics today. There's no doubt in my mind by the end of next year we could have 100. I think in the East Coast alone, did we have like 16 customers we're tracking or something like that? It might be up to 20. People coming and asking us, hey, what's your solution? Okay? So, real growth. So, what does it mean? So, if you think about Moore's Law, moving on the technology side, right? Beyond CMOS into FinFET, right? You think of the GPUs, the CPUs, the memories, everyone's chasing Moore's Law. How do I get smaller? How do I build a better circuit? Right? Less power, more bits, that kind of stuff. And then the other side, you have more than more. Sensors, biofluidics, all these things where you're not chasing the next process node, right? And this is where photonics falls in. And what's interesting is when you take these things and try and blend them with these things, and that's in the middle. That's the advanced packaging, what we call the heterogeneous system design. How do I take and build some photonic chip and put it next to a SerDes, and how do I put it in the same package and build a system that I can sell? That's what we are focused on. So when we talk about system design, that's the picture, okay? We do really well on this front, on the custom side for advanced node. We also do well on the digital side now too, through Mike Fang's team. I would say for the advanced node and the custom side, we're probably 99% of the market. Everyone uses Virtuoso, okay? Over here, we do well on these fronts too. The issue with those fronts is a lot of those people are building their own flows and their own processes, and we don't really know about it. They're using Virtuoso as a framework. And we have photonics customers that don't buy a photonics solution. They use Virtuoso to do photonics. Because it's skill. You can do whatever you want, right? What we're doing with photonics is we're taking something that people could build on their own, and and we're starting to give them Kirby core infrastructure. We're starting to give them tools to put together flows. Okay? So, here's an example system. It's complex. It's meant to be complex. You've probably seen this slide before. This is what the customer's trying to do. What's interesting about it is all the different pieces of Cadence technology that plug together to make the flow work. VSDP, starting over here. Allegro, package board. Ties in Coventor for MEMS type applications. Indoor analysis with Sigrity. Tying in Lumerical for optical simulation. Tying into MathWorks, for the beamforming algorithm kit. This is the type of problem we have with customers at a very high level. I'm not in talking to some polygon pusher. I'm not in talking to some designer. I'm talking at high level. This is what you're trying to build. We have tools that address a lot of those different spaces and the problems they have. So let's break it down. Virtuoso multi-technology solution. You guys would know this is VRF. Okay? It never ceases to amaze me. And it was funny. I saw Olivier Touzé in the airport in Pittsburgh yesterday. He's coming in because they're meeting. Glenn's having a staff meeting. And he's like, I really think we need photonics and RF. We should sell them together. And I looked at Olivia and I was like, I've been saying that for 2 years. Who is doing photonics that's not high-speed analog and RF? They are all doing high-speed analog. That's the whole point of photonics, right? What does RF get you? Everyone thinks Virtuoso RF is RFIC. We're not doing RFIC. They've been doing RFIC and Virtuoso for 20 years. It's really about mixing different technologies. That's what RF gives you. It gives you module-based, the way to look at a system, be able to run analysis on the system, and able, inside Virtuoso, to run a simulation on different types of ICs in the same system. That's what Virtuoso RF is. I actually switched the name of the title to Virtuoso Multi-Technology Solution. And it really is about blending those different technologies together. That's really important for photonics. Okay? Because a lot of the photonics you're going to do, they're not going to build their photonics chip in silicon. They're going to build it in some other exotic process. And that's okay. Okay, so when we go out and talk to photonics customers, this is how we position it. And this is why that Virtuoso RF is one of the key components to the overall photonics flow, which you'll need that license.
No, the multi-tech.
The multi-tech license. You'll need the multi-tech license. Another key component is on the simulation side. It's really using Lumerical for interconnect, which is on the optical side, and using Spectra on the electrical side. It's that co-simulation where we run both simulators in kind of serial type fashion to be able to simulate the entire system. Okay? You go out, so I was just at PIC International in Belgium, and I was with the Lumerical guys. No doubt, they are the leader. You go there, and all the big customers come, and they've been great to us. All the big customers, hey, this is Cadence, this is who we're working with. This is simulation flow, use Spectre. So really good on that front. This is on the simulation side. What we're going to talk about this week is Kirby Core. It's not, I keep walking in front of him, kill him.
Got a sec, got a license question for you.
No, Rob, I don't got a sec. He's going to keep counting. Okay. So Kirby Core, when you think of Kirby Core, and Gilles and I have gone round and round on this, Kirby Core, you think photonics, right? Kirby Core, from a marketing standpoint, is a branding term. That's all it is. We have people working on RF, we have people working on package and board, we have people working on photonics. Our goal is to take a lot of the Kirby Core stuff, the different APIs from different groups, and put it underneath that Kirby Core umbrella. Okay? One of the things you'll see is P-Cell Designer. Gilles has reached out, we're working with those guys, they want to take advantage of it. One of the first P-Cell Designer requests for Kirby Core was to do inductors. This is an API, this is building blocks, that if it makes my life easier to build these things, I can use them for all kinds of things in Virtuoso. It's a key competitive differentiator because it's super sticky. Once you start building, I don't care what you build. If you build P-cells using this stuff, it's going to be really hard to replace it. Okay, and it all comes from Gilles and those mathematical equations, and people love it, right? We talk to these PhDs who do photonic design, right? They don't want to spend all their time doing enablement. They could care less about the enablement. They want to create test chips and do testing. That's what they want to do. So when you look at the enablement piece of it, they're like, this is awful. I went to school for 10 years. I don't want to write P-cells, right? This is where this toolbox can really help them and get them focused on what they want to do, which is build and test. So when you look at Kirby Core, a lot of different things we can do. You know, from the photonics side, it's all the data center, medical sensor applications, LiDAR. These are all the different things when you think about Kirby Core that people can use to leverage to build these types of systems and flows. Okay? So here's a couple examples. You guys have all seen this stuff, what you can do. All mathematical based, which we'll talk about. The next thing we always forget about is the analysis piece of it. Okay? And actually, Gilles did a roadmap, I think, 2 years ago where he had like the different pieces of the analysis, thermal, and all the different things in there. We can't forget this. When we go talk to customers, they want to know, how do I analyze the system? And if you look with the new analysis group, there's tons of work being done. You know, traditionally we do Sigerty, now we have Clarity, now we're moving to thermal, which I think comes out second half of this year. We will leverage this whole analysis story with the photonics application. And we look at photonics, it's these types of things, right? It's these advanced packages that we put together that apply to all these different systems. Okay? So, on to licensing. So if you look at photonics layout, it's pretty straightforward. You need these framework licenses, period. Okay, you need the 111, which you've needed for 20 years. You need the 95011, which is the advanced node framework option, and then you need the 95022, which is the multi-tech framework license. What's important is the 95011 comes with the 95550, so you don't have to pay for it. Once you buy photonics, you get that with it. Okay? You do have to buy the 95022, which is new in 18.1. So 111 comes for free. 95011 comes when you buy the photonics option. The only thing you really need to buy is the 95022.
And so let me explain, right? You can have photonic without Kirby Core. And Finera has done photonic in 12.3 without Kirby Core. So the Kirby Core part comes in 95022. So you can enable photonics without Kirby Core, but then you have to do all the math yourself. Or use Phoenix.
And we're not pushing those flows. So the customers we talk to, they want the 95022. Right. So the flows Gilles was talking about with Infinera, I mean, they were one of our first partners 2 years ago before we even had Kirby Core. Okay? But when you go talk to your customers, these are the 3 framework licenses you need. Okay? Does that make sense? And they always get wrapped around the cost. What's important is we always get the, hey, why do I need an advanced node framework license? You need it because that's how the software is, but you don't have to pay for it because it comes with the photonics option. Does that make sense? Okay?
Yeah, question. So if they just want the front-end simulation portion.
Next page.
Okay.
Okay? Now, this is where it changes. Mandatory is VSEXL and VLSEXL, period. Okay, we started that in advanced node a while ago where we got rid of L, the L tier from a licensing standpoint. In 18.1, we literally got rid of the L tier. Okay, when you think about a photonics-based flow where it's system design, the whole point is to build complex systems across different chips where you care about connectivity and you're going to want to run analysis, and that's where we're going. I'm not trying to do a polygon pushing photonics flow. Okay, so we're forcing EXL, we're forcing XL. If you don't want to use that, that's fine. You know, it's okay. My feeling won't be hurt. You can go push polygons around in 6.1. I don't care. Okay, but the customers we're talking to, the Intels, the Nvidias, the Apples, they already own EXL. They already own all these things, right? And that's who we're focused on. We're building flows with the leaders. Okay, and you got to be real careful because you have these really small startup companies too, right? Who, you know, they have VSE, they have VLSL, they've built their own flows from the ground up, and now you need to get them to move to these higher tiers. And I have a slide on that in 2 slides that I'll talk about. Okay, so we really have 2 different types of customers. The really high-end guys who already own everything, and then the really just kind of startup-based companies that don't own anything. Okay? Any questions before I move forward? Gilles?
I I think I want to add that advanced node layout option, because everybody asks, is totally optional. It's written there, right? But you do not need advanced node layout option to run Photonic, right?
But a lot of
You do need the advanced node framework, but you do not need. And so the expensive one is the 95512. These guys are expensive, right? You do not need that to run Photonics.
So the advanced node framework, you get an advanced node framework with either one of these
As well.
You also get an advanced node framework with this, which says right there. Okay? So when you buy Virtuoso Photonics, the option, this product, Virtuoso Photonics option, you get that license with it. So you get 2 feature lines. Okay? So it doesn't really cost you anything more once you buy the Photonics option. It's weird because we get 2 different sides of it. We get the, what do I need to do to run the flow? I don't care how much it costs. And then we get the bookkeeping people who say, okay, how much does it cost? And you have this list of feature lines that are coming, and it's like, that's $1 billion. It's like, no, because 4 of these things just come when you buy the other stuff. This is really how much the seat costs. That's the confusing part about this. It's really not that confusing. It's not very complicated.
And there is a sliding 2 slide will help you.
I see you all thinking. This is where we get all our questions. Come on, fire away. Ask questions.
I'll show you the other 2 and then we'll go with.
Before we leave the layout side, the other question I get all the time, what do you do for physical verification? Okay? There's 2 ways, there's 2 answers we traditionally give. Depending on the customer and knowing your customer, this is no different than an electronic flow. We have tons of customers that use Virtuoso, they use Calibre for physical verification. They've been doing it forever. This is the same flow. You know, you can use Virtuoso for all the electronic stuff, for the design part of it, the layout side of it, and you can always run Calibre at the end for verification. We also have PBS, where we've done some work with Tower Jazz and a couple other foundries to enable it. Mike, what's TSMC going to do for physical verification? Have they requested anything for us yet?
I think they'll probably use the Calibre.
Yep.
They have equation-based verification.
Yep. So TSMC more than likely is going to request people use Calibre, which is what I would expect. Okay. So when your customers ask you about it, don't shy away from it. This is no different than designing an IC, electric IC. It's no different whatsoever. Calibre is integrated exactly the same way. Okay.
Would it be better to have this set up instead of a pick and choose sort of thing to say, right, if you want to do this, then here's what you want to buy and here's what comes with it?
So we have a slide.
Okay. Right.
So, but it's tricky because say you go into Intel. Intel already owns 40 different products, and they're enabling 3,000 designers, right? When you go talk to those people, they know every product, every feature. They know exactly what they want to do. They know exactly what they want to add. There's an AX involved. And then you have this little company that has 3 guys, right? And it's like, I don't own any of these products. I used to use freeware. And it's like, well, here's the 17 products you need to run Photonics. And I'm like, really? So, and that's the dynamic. Because if I create, which is that's slide 3. I'm stealing my thunder. But slide 3 is...
My thunder.
Yeah. We have a new product that is one feature line that enables the entire flow. And it's a startup product, right? Hey, I got 3 guys. You buy these 3 things. You can do schematic capture. You can do design entry. You can do layout. The only thing that's not included is the simulation piece of it. But it's a one feature line. And everyone keeps saying, well, what's in the feature? Anything you need to do photonics is what's in the feature. That being said, you go talk to, like, the Apple AX. He doesn't want a single product that does everything. Because he's selling 50 products that do a bunch of different things, right? It's better to have more flexibility depending on which end of the spectrum you're on. Does that make sense? So
when you talk about physical verification, you're talking about both DRC and LBS? Or?
yes.
Yes, push the LDS onto Mentor.
Okay.
Speaking
Well,
for
honestly, actually, the LBS flow, both in Mentor and PBS, would be a black box flow. There are no tools today that are capable of truly extracting the photonic parameter, efficiently or within a reasonable amount of time. So the LBS flow that exists on Mentor is actually a black box flow. So it's no better in truth than the live LVS you have in the binder in Virtuoso Excel. EXL, sorry.
Yeah, I just want to stress: do not shy away from the Mentor caliber question. They do it well, and we're going to be accomplished. Plenty of places where we're not complementary with Siemens, we are going to be complementary on this one. So, and the reality is, we're not investing on the physical verification side for these types of things at this time.
Have we tried PRC with PBS?
Yeah, so TowerJazz has a PBS rulebook for their process.
Okay.
DRC only, right? And it's based on DFM equation. So as long as the DRC rule deck from Calibre is DFM equation based, you can replicate the same in PBS. It gets different when they start using the photonic specific sign-off features that Calibre has implemented. And LVS, we could actually also totally do it the same way as Mentor does it. The point is, you are going to find that the PVS/Pegasus system is not going to be very supportive of any question you send to them. The first question they're going to ask you is, what process node is that? Which, in photonics, means nothing because there are no transistors.
And this is not meant to throw the PBS Pegasus.
No,
team
it's
under
just
the bus.
on their
They are
priority.
focused on different problems, which they should be focused on, that have huge upside. So the reality is they have limited resources. They can't work on this. So it's fine. Move on.
So from a positioning or posturing standpoint, a customer asks us, what's your solution? Do we defer to alternate solutions, or do we specifically bring up competitor names?
He told you. It's like electronics. Ask them what are
What do
you
you use?
doing with for electronics?
Okay.
It really diffuses the situation very quickly. They're like, "Oh, we were planning on using Calibre anyway." It's like, okay, good, use it. They're looking for that fight, and we just don't do it. It's a waste of cycles to do.
And you'll see on the flow picture that I've been using, in every, or even in your manual, right? There's a box with going to fab, and it's gray. I just simply don't pick the fight. Right?
Well, I think the other thing is Virtuoso's traditionally been very closed in certain flows. For photonics, we have to be open. We have to be. I mean, we're working with MathWorks, we're working with Numerical, we're working, because it's new and it's emerging, and there's people who do what they do very, very well, right? And you have these PhDs who've been partnering with these guys forever. You can't go in there and say I have a better solution, especially when you don't, right? You just take the high road and say, hey, the main feedback we get from people, we use like Huawei for an example, right? I got 150 people doing electronic design, and I got 5 people doing photonic design. I want them all in the same environment, so I can run a simulation and analysis in the same environment with the same schematic. And it's like, we can do that. And it's like, perfect. So they're not going to take the 150 people and move them over into a different tool to appease the 5 guys doing photonic design. They don't want the 5 photonics guys using freeware anymore. They want them using a schematic driven so they can analyze the whole system. So, I mean, it's set up perfect for us. Okay? And those people, those 150 people, if they're using Calibre today, physical verification, then use Calibre for the photonic verification.
Now, I've heard that there's a tendency for a lot of customers to work backwards from layout to schematic. Is that something that we have to change the mindset on, or are we just sort of letting it?
I think so it exists, and it's very much like the RF designers tend to think they're schematic, but they're actually in their head have a layout. It's exactly this. So it's another similarity with RF. I think so. We are not going to go after people who want to back annotate and extract a layout and create a schematic out of it. Okay, so we're not going to go after that. That's not the flow. We've chosen not to do that for RF. Right? There used to be actually a microwave solution in Opus that actually was doing that. We've chosen not to do that, and we're not going to differ from that. We're working and trying. You'll see, if you've been to any of the workshop, the flow takes big advantage of the back annotation, of back and forward annotation between the Excel environment and the schematic environment. Also working with R&D on things like, when in photonics, shorts or crossing are perfectly legal. And if we need to introduce some of this, then you need to sort of back annotate. So working with the Excel team to improve the ability to do things like pick from layout, right? Today you can do a pick from schematic, which would allow you to pick a layout component, so not a random piece of things, and put it manually where you want in the schematic, right? So there is some work being done in some of those things, but it's not extraction. It's based upon the fact that you have a layout component with a known set of parameter, a known connectivity, and you you pick from layout and back annotate it in schematic. So this is actually work. So it's not a roadmap type of thing, right? So very much aware that there is that type of methodology. However, the big customer he talked about, they do not want that methodology. They want the schematic-driven methodology so that they have a simulation. Possibly the simulation or the schematic that was used for the simulation gets updated or is connected with the layout. So we are always very much making all the demos, everything. The two are always very much tied together so that you can see that your layout directly influences your schematic. And this is a big emphasis in all the workshop we're doing, right, to make sure that the layout directly, can be reflected in the schematic.
But it is a good question. Some of the smaller researcher people have absolutely gone from the layout, that approach. We have one customer who's adamant about that's the right way to do it. But for every one of those, there's 15 who say, no, we want a schematic-driven approach. And so we're focused on the schematic-driven approach.
Encouraging that way.
Yes, because that's our sweet spot. And we told that customer, no, we're not willing. I mean, we'll work with you, but this is our flow. We're not going to take our resources and work on a flow that's not mainstream or in our best interest. So we haven't shied away from that either. So now the simulation side, same types of things. What you'll notice is you have the runtime option, you have the ADE assembler, and then you add inspector. Okay.
And you also have the BMT and the Virtuoso Photonic option, right?
Yep. Those were the same as layout.
So they don't go away, right? And the reason is, back to your question, when we do any waveguide, and you'll learn about model property back annotation, right? Any waveguide, if you want to simulate, so there is no RNC in photonics. Every waveguide is a device. And the technology to compute the waveguide parameters is actually based upon the layout. Right? We have the center line, we do an integration along the center line with curvature and all of those things, and that actually is Kirby core technology. Now, if someone wanted to do photonic simulation without Kirby core, they can, right? That's back to the 12.3 flow where there's no back annotation, nothing like that. But this is why actually Kirby core is moved as a framework level license at the base. Enabled for everything is because you need it for creating your schematic, computing the parameters, and in TSMC they have ADAS calculation outside with a binary running and things like that. This is a little bit like this. Instead of being ADAS being calculated by a binary, we're actually generating the layout that goes for this waveguide and doing the integration exactly the same way as you would do it into the schematic. So you learn a little bit about how this is happening in the process, but you see there's no, from a photonic license perspective, there's no difference in what's required to run the backend or the front end.
You need the photonics option in the MTS. The only thing that would change, so you'll see, you still need DSCXL. We recommend ADE assembler. We really want to get people moving forward on that. In theory, we should have just forced you to use ADE assembler, but we didn't. Didn't want to create that hurdle. On the simulation side, of course, Spectre plus the Oasis runtime option plus Lumerical interconnect is sold separately. We do get that question. Okay, so you need to buy the Lumerical, which most of the customers we're dealing with already own it, right? I will say, this is my opinion, you guys can chime in. I would say the majority of the customers we're working with are not using Spectre, is what I've seen. They're using a different simulator.
Which is NVIDIA would be HSpice, for example.
Yeah, a lot of HSpice. Eldo?
ST, but so there is a different photonic simulation flow which is Verilog A based, where instead of using an optical model, so there was a paper on that actually at CDN Live explaining when to choose to use a Verilog A model versus optical model, and there are actually places where the Verilog A model is actually performing very well, very fast, but places where the Verilog A model, and it depends on the complexity of what you're trying to put in your waveguide. If you're trying to do multiplex WDM, right, that doesn't work very well with Verilog A. If you have a single mode, single frequency, single set of signal, that's easy to model with Verilog A. The other problem with Verilog A is you have at least 3 ports for each direction of the signal, right? And so if you have reflection, which is important for light, you already have 6 ports, and you can't drive a physical implementation. Now, that being said, I'm working with the OA system to automatically expand optical ports. So if you're in schematic Excel, you're going to see that we have new signal types, an optical port. So I have enough data in the database to actually know that this is not an electrical port. Right? So I'm trying to work and to put in the plan of the OA system the ability to automatically expand at netlisting time the optical ports according to a pattern, which would enable to plug in Verilog A while keeping a single port, single net, golden schematic, which is compatible with LVS, layout generation, and optical simulation. Again, so these are, and you really have to understand there's tons of things we can do for photonics, and that's the same for electronics. It doesn't mean we don't have a solution, right? There are tons of things we can still do for electronics, right? And there are tons of things we can still do for photonics. So this is a roadmap item, right? I'm working with the OA system to try to have that done automatically. In the meantime, Numerical actually has for their customer a prototype that does exactly that, right? They have written an expansion on top, so their integration, that's why you need Oasis runtime. Their netlisting for photonics has the ability to do the expansion. What I'm talking about is moving that into the Cadence side where it really belongs, so to be efficient, to support incremental netlisting and all those things. So I'm planning on moving that into the Cadence side. But in the meantime, there is a solution. Numerical has implemented this on their side.
Does our solution with ADE play nicely with Numerical and those other external simulators?
The other no. Numerical,
So-
yes. And so let me it's not our solution with ADE, it's Numerical solution with ADE.
So if you're going to use this solution, you really need to use Spectre.
You need to use Spectral Numerical.
Okay.
Our solution is Spectral Numerical. If you want to play with our soft HPICE, it's your own.
Okay.
We don't have an interface for our soft HPICE.
Maybe I can clarify that one. What's happening is in terms of details is the Merkle guys actually implemented routine into Spectre, and when the Spectre is going to do the netlist, it's going to call their tool when they're listening at also partitioning.
Okay.
Then that is only implemented for Spectre, and it means that it works for Spectre plus AMSD Designer, because AMSD is using Spectre as the analog solver. With the other tool, other like simulators, it's not going to work.
So the long and short of it is, you want to do co-simulation, you have to use Spectre.
Yes.
Yes.
Why would we enable HPICE?
I'm just asking.
Or PSPICE. So, so
That being
you know,
said,
That being
there's a
said-
lot of customers now.
Right. I mean, we've done this kind of thing in the past, where we've enabled these other third-party simulators, not to our benefit. I just want to make sure that we're
It's a good question.
Well, so we've enabled Interconnect as a third-party simulator.
Right.
The Interconnect team has not worked to build something on top of HPICE because RSoft, which belongs to Synopsys, is actually, luckily, a direct competitor of Numerical Interconnect. So they have zero motivation to work with HPICE. Right. On the other end, they're working with PSPICE, but not out of Cadence, So there is a PC-based photonic environment, which is out of Tanner, right? And it uses PSPICE, or T-SPICE, which is Tanner SPICE. And there is an interface between Numerical and Tanner. We don't fight at this time on that. We try to, and it's not absolute, right? We talk with the Numerical guys, and we try to split the market. There are the people based on PC, and you can do whatever you want there. We don't support it, right? Virtuoso doesn't run on a PC, on a Windows OS software. When it comes to Unix, we're going to be a little bit more defensive if they're trying to build something. Luckily, Tanner doesn't, well, PSPICE doesn't work on it. Right? Oh, it's not a common platform. So it's kind of, and it's not official, right? But it's kind of how the world is split. PC, it's all Tanner. Mentor, basically. Right? And you'll hear it from many of the small foundries, right? Remember, photonics has a lot of exotic little foundries everywhere. So there's definitely a big market, and that's actually why we have the slide coming after this one, right? That is PC based, very cheap, and today prefers Tanner Mentor solution. And then there is the corporate market, which happens to be schematic driven. So this market is very much layout driven, by the way, and they don't even have schematic in future. Then there's the big corporate Linux market that prefers the formal methodology with simulation, LVS, and data management and all those things. And this is the one we're going after. So we're hoping to steal from this market because this small company tends to be bought into this market, but we really don't hope to lose anybody from this market to this solution.
So from a high level, Numerical does not partner with Synopsys at all. They are competitors, go head to head. They partner with us on the Linux side. They will partner with Siemens on the PC side. Now we have heard that Mentor has dropped support for Pixis, which is what most people were using for photonic design. And in fact, when we were at OFC, a couple customers came up to us and said, yeah, they dropped support for Pixis. So if we're going to move to a full flow, we might as well just move to Virtuoso because everyone uses Virtuoso anyway.
Right, and so tomorrow you'll get actually one customer that comes from that situation.
Because remember, we've got this big group of people doing IC design. I got this little group of people that have been doing it the way they've been doing it. Their tools going away, so it's like, you know what? We're just going to merge. And you see it even the management side. The IC manager is getting the photonic group now, and he wants to make it. He wants to simplify across the whole thing. That's why that system story resonates with everyone. Because the guy also has the package board people, and it's like, oh, you have a platform where they can all work together, which is why it doesn't make sense to fight with Mentor and verification. It doesn't make sense to fight because they're already in there in these electronic flows. Photonics is just adding another component to it.
Who was using Pixis? Huawei?
Huawei.
That was the guy who came up and said, yeah, we're in Pixis, so we're going to move.
I just have one more comment for the simulation is, usually in Spectre, when you go over Spectre RF, there are different type of simulation that's supported, like VSS, like automatic balance, AC, those kind of things. In the co-simulation, only transient domain is going to be supported, and Numerical already integrated as a third-party axial nature simulator. They support a type of simulation called the optical AC, which is getting the transfer function in the optical domain. And there are two options. You enable Interconnect as a third-party simulator, and it can run any kind of like the optical transfer function, or you select Spectre or AMS Designer as a top-level simulator, and Interconnect is going to enable for the co-simulation time. And there's no support for PSS, there's no support for harmonic balance under co-simulation.
Doesn't
Yeah.
work. Yeah.
Okay, so there is a new product. It's called the Virtuoso Photonics Platform. It is a single feature line that will do either of the two flows you just saw. It will do the full-blown photonics layout flow. It will do the full-blown design flow with ADE. The only thing that's not part of there, that is the simulation. You still have to buy Spectre separately. You still have to buy PVS separately. But anything that's Virtuoso proper, VSE, ADE, VLS, advanced node options, all that stuff, the advanced node framework option, that's all available in this single feature line.
So the Spectre interconnect link is included in there?
Yes,
Yes.
Oasis Direct. Everything that is based on Virtuoso.
Except Spectre.
Where Spectre is not Virtuoso. Right. So everything that runs from Virtuoso, the platform, is available. And we try not to say. So when I explain it, I say the framework, the schematic editor. I don't say the product numbers or anything like that because actually there are no product number. In your license file, you get one
Feature
line.
line. There's one
Right.
feature line.
You cannot share that license, right? So you cannot have one designer using the schematic editor, another designer using the layout editor. It doesn't work that way, right? It's more like, I think it's more like what, the PCB guys, they have a Sigrity Enterprise and they have a PCB Enterprise, which is a one license file that enables all the tools as well, right? But we went slightly different. They're calling it Enterprise because Sigrity Enterprise is 1.2 million, right? And they're targeting the enterprise market. We are actually, with this one, really targeting the startups that don't want to have, all those little 13 product or whatever and have that discussion. And actually, the salespeople do not want to spend time explaining all of that. So you just go buy one product. And I'm actually giving the same to a lot of the small foundries, right? Because I want the small foundries. I'm trying to give to the small foundries. So tomorrow we have Tower Jazz and Fraunhofer that are coming here from foundries, and they get one like this and one a la carte so that they can validate the two. But in theory, it's the same software, right? It's just that within the software, within the framework, we have the technology to enable all the tools based upon one single license. You can't, so big thing is you can't split it, you can't share it. It's one user, one license, all the tools.
So, and by doing this, a couple things trigger. First of all, this is not meant to be a volume thing. I'm not looking to sell 100 of these, right? I'm looking to sell a few of these to a startup company, right? There are startup pricing, which helps alleviate the discounting issues that some of these companies run into. Remember, some of these companies we're selling against free. I have freeware. My flow works. Oh, now I need to buy $500,000 worth of software. Well, we've got a business tomorrow. So it really helps with that kind of stuff. It really is to seed the market though, and get those people that are kind of freewares using industry standard products and not killing the AXs. Okay. So it's there. It is SQW exception. That means you have to request it for me to even get access to it.
The other one as well, by the way.
Yeah, because we want to track and see what's going on. Now I'll give you a perfect example. Do you have anyone from India here? Okay. So we got a request to do a CDN Live 20-minute presentation or something like that, right? And it's like, okay, well, we need to get people into India training. Because if we go and create the demand and no one knows how to run the photonics flow, that doesn't do us any good. And that's what the SQW exception does, is we have people that will just go sell it, don't have AEs who can support it, and it just gets us in a bad spot, right? So the SQW is basically that hurdle to say, who do you have trained? What's the plan? How many designers are we talking about? What's the flow they're using? So it's a little hurdle, but it's not that big of a deal. We go through them all.
So do you see this as like a sort of a lead magnet to get people in the front door and then latch them on and want them to buy, go in full force later, or
They're full force on this. They have all the pieces.
They have everything.
but are there
What would happen here is you get that little small startup company that says has 5 guys, that in 3 years has 150.
and this is a more economical solution for them to go this route as a startup
Yes.
as opposed to
Well, because we can set the price.
okay.
I can set the price. I mean, well, and this is where the AX they know what they can kind of afford. And we can set the price, we can set the discount so it doesn't hurt the deal quality. But that's why it's SQW. It's kind of protected. It's not in the price book. Okay. And
There's compatibility with the hosted solutions that we offer small startups.
yes, it's the same.
So, the word compatibility this is truly, purely a license thing. The software is exactly the same one. So you need to be very clear on that. It's not a different software. If you've qualified your flow on the one with the individual licenses, there's no reason it would not work with this one. Or if you qualified it with this, there's no reason it would not work with the other one. It's exactly the same software. You're right.
When I say compatible, it's compatible with the startup pricing and all the things that would get triggered. So this is a good thing. We got rid of a big hurdle for a lot of the small companies, and there's a ton of them. Okay?
When is this available? Which version?
ISL 3. It's already available.
Is it so cheap that it would?
It's not so cheap. The price is matched to your pocket ability.
We don't.
The least price is 250K. Okay. It's not that cheap.
I try not to use the word cheap, but does it somehow compete with just somebody who says, I want Virtuoso layout and schematics, and it's somehow less than that,
So,
less than individual price?
and that's why it's SQW exceptions, because we don't want AXs to go and sell this to AI, QS, and all those guys, because you could blow up a contract real quick by putting something out there. It's like, oh, with that list price and my discount, I can pay half what I used to pay, and I get way more. So that's why it's
There'll
kind
be
of
a temptation, but you're in the way.
not for the AX.
It-
The AX doesn't lose money, but that's why it's not in the price book. That's why you have to ask me, and then it triggers and it shows up, and you get to see it. Okay. I know you think marketing and on the packaging, pricing side, we got it all figured out. We're kind of tiptoeing along on this one. because we do need to open it up to the smaller companies, and this is the best way we can figure out how to do it. Okay. So this is the roadmap. You remember this one, Jules? Dug it up. Probably looked to see if we got what we were supposed to. We did do the curvy core. P-cell designer, I moved out a little bit because we had to. The key thing is TSMC. So I was in Taiwan with Mike, was it last month? I think it was last month. I've been going for 2 years. A couple times a year, and I ask the same question every time. When are we going to go with photonics? When are we going to build the photonics PDK? When are we going to build the photonics PDK? And we would actually set up special meetings so I could ask that question so they could say, not yet, not yet, not yet. 2 years. 2 years, kept going back. Well, for the first time last month, they came and said, we're ready. And we want a press release with you guys by September for OIP talking about the photonics flow at TSMC. Okay, this changes everything, right? You have all those little small foundries doing their own little thing.
Hey, by the way, don't take notes. You're not allowed to talk about
Oh, you're not
this.
talking about any of this stuff. So, Mike and the team are putting together a work plan for TSMC right now to start building the components. They're going to use Kirby Core to build those components. It'll be a schematic-based flow with P-cells, the whole thing. Like you said, they're going to use Caliber for verification. They're going to take what they do on the electronic side, and they're going to build it for the photonic side. This is getting driven by Huawei, the NVIDIAs, those big customers who want to start taking photonics and seeing how they can get them onto their new systems. Okay? So that's the big change.
And tomorrow,
This was actually back
tomorrow
here.
we can't talk about that.
Don't
there are
say-
people from TSMC. There will be people from GF, from Intel, from TowerJazz in the room. So, they can guess whatever they want, right? And TSMC has made press release with Luxtera, right? So that everybody knows there is a TSMC fab that actually runs photonics today. Right? So it's not a secret technology. Huh? What technology? Luxtera technology.
65?
It's built upon the 65 SOI TSMC process as the base, but Luxtera actually has demonstrated in multiple fabs the ability to take a CMOS process on top of it and create waveguide, right? And so they've taught that to TSMC. That being said, the details are secret, right? But what is not is there is a fab in TSMC running photonics, but that's about it. Whatever is going to happen to OIP and everything like that, this doesn't leave the room. So tomorrow we're in a different room, so it doesn't leave this room. It stays in monopoly.
So, but it's all that work we've been doing for the past couple of years. As we saw with Advanced Node, once you get the big foundry behind it, pushing it and making it available, that's where you see the big push. So that being said, when you're doing your 7 nanometer SerDes and you're doing your 65 nanometer photonics, it's a system problem. So we're working them on the analysis side with thermal and clarity, and Sigerty, and all these pieces. And
Celsius is the name of the
I think it's Celsius.
Celsius, yeah, because
Who
the
knows?
thermal analysis stuff.
But they've been beating us up for the past couple of years for the CoWoS 2.5D, flows. Our Allegro and Allegro guys keep going over there. It is a system problem, and photonics is a little new technology they're adding that'll be part of that whole system story, which is what we'll stick with TSMC. Okay, and that whole story is really what differentiates us from the competition. Okay, so that's the key things. This was way back here. I moved it. That was my.
So I
actual
think
slide.
the interesting other thing is TowerJazz is coming tomorrow, and they're planning on re-releasing their PDK that today is using Phoenix as the layout engine in the second half this year as a 30 core based, and that's our only commercial offering today that has a dependency on synopsis. So that's going away normally second half this year.
So we'll update this slide. We'll update the analysis side of it, add more analyses where it makes sense.
Like I said, there's a lot more bubbles on the left than there are on the right. Is that just
Because roadmaps are secrets, and things that have been released have been released.
But there's more going on than what's showing up in the future, or working towards in the future?
Well, on photonics, this is real. On photonics, there are a lot of more. So the thermal is ongoing. The peak from schematic, which is interesting for anybody sort of layout oriented. There is a routing project that is starting using the PCB any angle router. I have an intern for that. What else did I talk about? Yeah, thermal, and that actually would be dynamic thermal. So the ability, like in Legato, to have temperature sent and exchanged with interconnect for transient simulation.
And by the way, I'm also working on a project as a side project for the missing link that we have from Virtuoso with the multi-cat tools, which means that you have a layout, curvicle layout, and you will be able to actually apply click on it, and automatically generate a 3D structure for you with the cat tools available with any kind of optical simulation.
So, how to put this the right way? I guess this would be a good problem to have, but we have a small number of customers right now. If it explodes like we hope it will, do we have the infrastructure to be able to support all the
That's why you're
feedback
here.
we're going to get?
That's why you're here.
Well, but
Right,
but a lot of that is R&D. A lot of that is R&D based, right? I mean, feeding back to R&D, things that need to be enhanced, added. I mean, do we understand the full set of what's
So-
going on out
So
there?
that's that's also why he's here, right? Is once we get the customer, the product is today mostly developed by the normal R&D teams, right? So I lead them, but a lot of the composite waveguide has been done by the Excel team. The Curvy Core has been implemented by there's Mike, by the way, by these two guys in the infrastructure guy, right? So the R&D team has all the knowledge and the fingers in there. It's no different. I would say what he said. It's no different than electronics. When there is a need that comes in, it gets you get a PCR, it gets fed in, and it's if you need an enhancement for the WSP or if you need an enhancement for photonic, if you have Apple behind it, or if you have Intel behind it, or TSMC behind it, it's very likely to go. If you're a small one, and it's like electronics, if it's a small one, it doesn't fit in the flow or anything like that. So it's one of the good thing of not having a photonic teams, although I would love to have a photonic teams, is the whole Virtuoso team is the photonic team the same way as they are the electronic team. Okay. Right? And TechWeb is the same, right? So there's no a photonic person in TechWeb.
So I will say, this has been a team of two for 2.5 years. It's been a lot of progress. It really has. We are relevant.
Oh yeah,
I mean, we've gone
you can tell
from
that.
not even being at OFC, not even being at PIC, not even being in these conferences where the boo walks in and says this booth needs to be big. Okay. That being said, we've laid the groundwork as it's like anything else. Once the demand picks up, we'll staff accordingly, but they're not going to do that until the money starts rolling in. Okay. Right on time.
Good. Really? What's the time?
I have no idea how
Another 45 minutes. You can run it on, so.
Yes.
23 minutes over.
So, thank you, Jeremiah.
You're welcome.
So maybe, you all know his email, right? However, please, keep Amadreza and I in questions that you have from the field because we want to learn and we try to have, constant, and consistent answers, right? So if you have licensing question or anything, he is really your target, but I would like to know about it so that, we can figure out if there's something we can do better or, implement better.
Can you share your licensing slides?
Those slides?
Yeah, I think it's sent them.
Yeah.
Or should we just send the AXS?
The only one is the roadmap one. I don't know if you want to share that.
Yeah, we don't want anything
Yeah,
with
let's do everything else. I don't want the roadmap one.
Yeah, the TSMC, you need to remove the TSMC bubble. Okay, so you take a little break, a little bio break, you get ready, you sit down, put your seat belts, and so just do a 5 minutes break. Mike just joined us. Mike is actually in the infrastructure group. That's not the same Mike as the Taiwan Mike. Mike has been leading the actual implementation. So Yanis has been leading the mathematics, and Mike has been leading the actual implementation of Curvy Core in the software as well as the data model and some of those things. So this is a little bit how I split the things. Although he is also a mathematician. He will admit to it. I'm not sure.